those local budgets. This year, sort of a perfect storm of factors driving up school spending. Pandemic era federal funds are disappearing, costs of healthcare are rising, aging school building infrastructure is in need of investment. There's complex mental health and other student support needs that are increasing. So in the legislature, we're certainly looking for ways to try to help in the short term. And we've also started having some tough long-term conversations about how we get education spending under control statewide, or how we change the funding formula to take some of the burden off of property taxes, or both. I'll just say, I believe deeply in supporting our schools, providing the best education possible for our students. And I also know that the property tax increases that have been projected over the past few months are scary and are unsustainable for a lot of us. So we need to be having those hard conversations, both in the State House and back here at home, about what possible solutions could look like moving forward. I do want to say, I think locally our Taconic and Green School Board has done a phenomenal job in really difficult circumstances, yes. And they really do deserve our support and deserve our thanks for that, for finding a way to keep spending as low as possible while also providing for the education of our students, providing for our staff in our schools. I'll certainly be supporting their budget tomorrow. I do also want to report on some good news progress on the deployment of last year's child care bill, which is now known as Act 76. When we were working on it last year and when we passed it, we said it could be truly transformational for child care in Vermont. Increased funding for staff, so we can see wages start to rise, more spots start to open up, start to really ease that tight child care availability situation we've been seeing for years. And soon, increased direct subsidies will start to flow to families as well, to make it more possible for more people to afford childcare. And also to get back into the workforce, or to join the workforce for the first time. The ripple effects of this childcare legislation across our economy, I think we'll keep seeing for a long time. Also want to touch on ongoing efforts this session around housing and Act 250 reform. There's a lot of work being done to bring everybody to the table to start to address standing land use law, and make sure that as we look toward it's been around for over 50 years, as we look to the next few decades, make sure that it's continuing to do its job in protecting our forests and farmland from fragmentation, but that it's not getting in the way of really making sure that we need for Vermonters of all incomes and all stages of life. And also that we're making sure that as we're looking at that housing development, that we're taking account of our river corridors and floodplains, so that as we're increasing that housing stock, it's resilient in the face of increased flood risks. And then finally, I just want to highlight some of the work we've been doing on the Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry, which is where I serve. In Montpelier, most of our time is not spent on the floor in the chamber of the House of Representatives. Most of our time is spent around the table in our committee rooms, where we work on the areas that are under our committee's jurisdiction, where we take hours of testimony from Vermonters who would be impacted by one. We really work line by line on the legislation in those areas. This year, we have been working on bills that would increase farm viability by allowing for consumer sales, creating accessory on-farm activities to support farmland staying in farmland, the use of neonicotinoid pesticides, which have been devastating pollinator populations, protecting forest landowners from timber theft and fraud, reducing regulatory burdens for small-scale forest product operations, and investing in our outdoor recreation economy, which is a huge opportunity. I think we see how important outdoor recreation is here in Dorset and growing. And we know that outdoor recreation economy is contributes almost 5% of our overall state economy in Vermont, which is second in the nation only to Hawaii. So we've got a bill commissioning an economic impact study, creating some best management for trail stewardship, making sure that since we know this is so important, that we're looking for the areas that are open for growth, and that we're also protecting these assets, both economic and ecological. So I'll leave it at that. I hope you will take a copy of the town report that I left on the table. It's also available on my website if you prefer to consume it that way. And then also just one last pitch. I hope you'll, if you're not yet signed up to receive my regular email updates, you can scan the QR code on that report or sign up at my website. I send updates regularly. It's a really great way to stay in touch with what's going on up in Montpelier, and also a great way to remind yourself if there's something you meant to get in touch with me about or reach out comes in and start a conversation. So thank you all for giving me a few. And this was my second meeting of the night, actually. I was up in Landgrove at 6. I'll head to Danby Mount Tabor, and then I'll race back so I can try to participate in as much of this meeting as I can. Thanks.
He has to go to Fort Towns, but Mike. Go figure. Just a few ground rules tonight. It's a little different because it turns out we just have one of these things. So they're taping this on GNAT TV, and as much as you might believe that you really can be heard from where you are, the answer is no, you can't be heard. And we want your ideas to be expressed and heard by others. But tonight, since we only have one of these, if you intend to speak, we're going to ask you to come up here, and then we'll give you this microphone.
President, I was hoping that Mike would stay because I had some questions I wanted to ask him. Will there be an opportunity later, do you think?
Particularly if he comes back, yes. It's a tough job he has. I recently was testifying before the legislature on a bill, and boy, I'm glad that he does what he does and I do what I do, because I want to be part of that. So anyway, before we start, just, we're going to pass the mic back and forth, and I'll remind everybody that a town meeting is a chance to express your opinions and ideas, but we can all disagree without being disagreeable, and it's okay to attack someone's ideas, but not to attack them. So it's okay, if you're against it, you can't say your mother wears army shoes. We're not going to go there, and I'll cut you off. Okay? So that being the case, we'll go to Article 1, is to hear and accept the reports of the town officers and take proper action on same. Is there a motion to do so? Okay, Michael Tadal, and behind Don. Okay. Manager Rob Gianni.
Thanks to everyone for coming tonight. This is, I think, a pretty good turnout. I'm going to go through essentially the old paper handout that you guys have at your disposal there. It's highlighting kind of the budget, which is the one that we're going to approve by Australian ballot tomorrow, and then also some of the things that we did last year and things that we're going to plan to do as a town next year. So the fiscal year 25 budget overall, it represents about a 4% increase in expenses from year to year. What that entails is a host of things. From the infrastructure standpoint, we're going to look to pave portions of Dorset Village, hopefully leverage a grant to pave most of Morse Hill Road. We have regular replacement of highway equipment, and also a possible partnership with the Long Trail School to pave a portion of Paul's Way. The new town office permitting, we're actually out to bid right now at this point in the year. biggest year-to-year change on the town budget item is from a couple of years ramping up a bond payment number in a line item in the town budget in an effort to not have a huge increase all in 1 year. So this is kind of the final year of that, and that the full bond payment represents about 4.9 or 5% of the overall increase of 8%. Let's see. Personnel stuff is all pretty self-explanatory. Enforcement, cost increasing roughly about 20 to 30% based on the new sheriff's contract. Sheriff Gully, I think is now in his second year, and has adjusted the contract, the hourly rate for the contract that we have to provide law enforcement, which generally provides 40 to do directed patrols and answer calls and whatnot. As far as other items to kind of highlight, insurance for town employees, about a 6.2% increase. A little differently, and you'll see this in the warning that the board is kind of restructured the review and approval process for nonprofit appropriations. So appropriations under a certain dollar amount have been embedded into the town budget, and anything over $2,000 is now requiring a petition every year, and it's going to be voted on the floor, and that's what you see here. As far as the projected tax rates, we do expect the grand list to go up a little bit, so the town tax rate increase we're expecting about 6%, which is on a house at $350,000 of value, it's about 2 pennies or about $70 a year. And then I'll try to get into some of the highlights for last year. Dorset Village has got an ongoing water project that's about 50% complete, and it's under budget, which is a good thing. And we're hoping to leverage the remaining portion of budget, which we expect to be about $500,000 to $750,000 in additional scope or more work, which is going to allow the fire district to maximize grants and subsidy, which is a good thing. And that improvement project is going to help make strides towards removing the water allocation moratorium for the village. The Route 30 pathway scoping study, there's some maps over on the wall there. It was kind of bisected by COVID, but over the last couple of years, we got a grant to do a scoping study for a path, in theory, bike pedestrian path on the edge of Route 30, going from Dorset Village area to North Road, to the Manchester Rail Trail. So that study is, there's some paper copies of it over there. It's available on our website. We're now having to kind of digest that and figure out what the proper next steps are. So other infrastructure pieces, we've got Glenwood Woods in East Dorset. 76 replacement projects have started, which is a welcome sign. Lying areas there. Tennis Way, the town has, I think, gone kind of above and beyond here to help help berm that is causing flooding in the industrial park. In August of last year, the select board adopted a new zoning bylaw, and really a big kudos goes out to the planning commission and the planning consultant that helped to bring that forward. It's more or less a complete reformatting and overhauling of the zoning regulations. And short-term rentals, the board has just kind of started into the review of some kind of regulatory oversight over short-term rentals. So they're looking at an ordinance, and there's kind of more to be coming up. As far as the housing task force, last year at town meeting there was an advisory article to create a housing task force that would look at the problems associated with housing in our area and try to define and pursue some solutions. So the good news is that group has started meeting. It's a really active group, a lot of really smart people in the room, some of the things that they are focusing on. One is there's hopefully going to be soon an engineering capacity review for Raptor Lane in terms of how much housing might be able to be looked at there that would make sense for Dorset. The group has met with regional partners in the housing to look at infrastructure regulation, housing trust or funding, Raptor Lane, which I just talked about, and then messaging about housing. Work on. So hopefully you'll see more on that in the mid part of the year, with likely some kind of a study or a write-up that comes from this group. So many thanks to the folks that are sitting on that board as well. And the new town office, last thing I'll leave with here is that we're currently bidding. Right now the bids are due back. I think that the bidding due date just got extended by about a week to try to get some parity and the most amount of vendors interested. And hopefully at the end of next week, we'll be able to start to break ground somewhere probably in the early summer timeframe. And soon thereafter, maybe not next town meeting, but shortly after that, we'll be in a room that's a little more designed and capable for not just this type of meeting, but a virtual meeting as well. So that's all we have, unless the board wants to add any color to it.
I've always thought a basketball hoop was vital. Like this. Thank you, Rob. So that was to hear and accept the reports of the town officers and take action on same. So if we wish to approve Rob's report and the other town reports that are in the booklet, I'll entertain a motion to approve. All those in favor of please signify your approval by saying aye. Aye. Your disapproval by saying nay. The ayes have it. We're through one article. Article 2 is tomorrow by Australian ballot, and it has in the town report the officers we need for 1 year. I'm also running for town agent. I've always been curious of why I get different vote totals. I've never understood it. If you like me or don't like me, you think you like me or don't like me in equal proportions. But, and on our select board, I believe it's, stand up, Megan Turn is running for a 3-year term. Are you not?
Yes.
Okay, and Henry Chandler, 1-year term. And I think it's Liz Ruffett. Liz Ruffett is running for a 1-year term also. We want to thank all commission that did yeoman's work last several years on doing this. So maybe we should give them a round of applause just for doing it. Okay, Article 3 going on, since we can't vote on that tonight. Shall the voters authorize the collection of property taxes in 2 installments on September 10, 2020? Not received will be subject to 1% interest on September 13, 2024, and 1% interest and 8% penalty on March 14, 2025. Is there a motion in favor of Article 3? Martha Berman and then Sue Washburn seconded it. Okay. Is there discussion? Okay, there being none, I don't think oh yes, there is discussion. Mr. Fox.
Is the interest a one-time 1% interest, or is it a periodic interest?
It's every month it accrues the interest. And the 8% kicks in when you're delinquent, which does not occur until the second installment becomes overdue. Are there any other questions? Okay, it hasn't been that long, but maybe I should say it again. Shall the voters authorize the collection of property taxes in 2 installments on September 10, 2024 and March 11, 2025? 59 is the warning. Payments not received will be subject to 1% interest on September 13, 2024, and 1% interest and 8% penalty on March 14, 2025. All those in favor of Article 3, please signify your approval by saying aye. Aye. And your disapproval by saying nay. The ayes have it. Article 3 is passed. Okay. Article 4. Approve total highway and general fund expenditures $1,035,557, of which $2,604,000 shall be raised by taxes and $420,732 by non-tax revenues. Now, this is what you're voting on tomorrow, the second thing you're voting on tomorrow. But we certainly can discuss it. Certainly, I think Rob reviewed most of it. But if there are a few other questions about the budget. Okay, Abbott Duran really has moved to Georgia, hasn't he? Okay, moving on. Abbott's a good friend. He was always just your gadfly. Okay, Article 5. Shall the voters approve to dissolve the unemployment insurance fund and use the balance, $50,000, no, $882, to offset the 2025 property taxes. The town now has an unemployment insurance policy through the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. Article 5. Okay, Mr. Fox. Okay. And Don Hayward. Okay. Discussion about this article, Article 5. There being none, all those in favor of Article 5 signify your approval by saying aye. Aye. Disapproval by saying no. Ayes have it. Article 5 is passed. Empower the Select Board to enter into a mutually acceptable joint management agreement with the town of Rupert for the long-term care, maintenance, financial responsibility, and governance of the Meadowy Valley Community Park. Is there a motion in favor of Article 6? Okay, Tom Cooper and Sanford Weiss, I think, seconded. I'm sure she was. Okay. You're in the book next year, Sanford. It's good. It's good. Okay. Okay, is there discussion? Do you want to speak about this? This is the track.
It's in Rupert on Route 30 as you're heading out of town, just before the old Gray Barn, just after it, I think, just after. And years ago, there was a nonprofit organization that was created as part of a land conservation effort, and board members from each town, Dorset, Paulet, and Rupert, and they sat on a little board and kind of maintained and operated the facility there, which is, I think, on about 10 acres. Used to have a softball field, now it's just got a kind of a fenced-in area, and it's a pavilion. That has dissolved, and the land trust, which owns the conservation easement underneath, is trying to get the towns to take it over. The general sense here is that it's not going to be a huge financial burden on Dorset, and if Rupert and Paulet, then Dorset would work with them to do something there.
1985, I formed that nonprofit. And the land doesn't perk, so no building was ever built. But there's a nice track. Discussion on this? Yes, Justine. this way so they see your face.
Oh, okay. So, wondering if someone could talk to the idea of financially getting involved with the park. When I had some memory when we first moved here in the mid-2000s that Dorset was involved with the Manchester Park, and I know a lot of kids are on the sports teams and so on, and we definitely do use the rec park in Manchester, but we pulled out of that arrangement, and I wasn't quite sure if we're going to also maybe get back involved with Manchester and how.
It's not exactly germane, but let's answer it anyway.
So it's a kind of a different, this is mainly, the Meadowy Valley Park is mainly just green space. So the costs there are going to be mowing and insurance, which is going to be probably under $5,000 or $6,000 a year, split 3 ways. That doesn't preclude your question to get together and talk. Through the years, there has been kind of ongoing discussions. Dorset still retains its policy where we reimburse any non-resident fees to the rec park, and we're, I think we're a willing partner if Manchester's interested in bringing us on board, and it makes sense for us. So.
Okay. Is there further discussion on this article? Okay, so shall the vote into a mutually acceptable joint management agreement with the town of Rupert for the long-term care, maintenance, financial responsibility, and governance of the Meadowy Valley Community Park. All those in favor of Article 6, approval by saying aye. Aye. Or disapproval by saying no. The ayes have it. Article 6 is passed. Okay, we're starting to get now into appropriations, and so sometimes we have. No, that's yours, not I say. So we strongly encourage that they have somebody here, and they've been told to have somebody here, but sometimes the person here is not from here. And so I'm going to ask everybody who comes up to say where they're from, but rather than having, several motions to suspend the rules to allow a person to speak on behalf of their organization, can I just that it is okay that if somebody is not from these parts, they can speak on behalf of their organization?
Yes.
I think that makes the most sense. Okay, Article 7, because this will start. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $30,000 Association and Hospice of the Southwest Region, formerly known for support of its services provided to Dorset residents? Is there a motion in favor of this article? Okay. In the back, sir, I guess maybe we haven't met him.
We have Jeremy Chestnut.
Jeremy Chestnut. That's terrible. I once called Marge Free, the select board, by her daughter's name, and I didn't leave that for a long time. Is there a second to the motion? Okay, Cindy Marion? She's at the door. I can see her.
I thought you was, yeah,
Oh.
Roasted, that's okay. Okay.
Oh, okay. Right. All right, is there a discussion? Is there someone here from VNA and Hospice? You could just say who you are and where you're from. I'm going to guess you're not from here.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. How about now? Yeah. So my name is Jessica Fredette. I am from Rutland, Vermont, but I oversee all human resources and development operations with the VNA and Hospice of the Southwest region. There were quite a few of us who divided and conquered the task of presenting at town meetings so that we could be available to share information with you, as well as answer any questions you may have about appropriations. If you don't mind, I'm just going to step back here because I do have something prepared. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for your ongoing support of the VNA and Hospice of the Southwest region. Your town funding is greatly appreciated and is needed now more than ever. Late last year, the VNA and Hospice of the Southwest region was asked by members of your select board to consider taking a reduction in your community support, and we hesitantly agreed because reductions in any form do impact our operations. But we understand the need for the select board to do their due diligence, and we want to be a supportive community partner. So this year, the VNA is requesting $30,000 from the town of Dorset, which is a $10,000 reduction for previous years. It was yet another challenging year for the VNA, as is the case with home health agencies across the country. Our agency lost $3.2 million from operations last year. The other agencies in the state of Vermont. Late last year, VNA of Vermont and New Hampshire had to make the difficult decision to reduce their service area in southeastern Vermont. There has been some confusion throughout the state with community members and referral sources due to, I believe, confusing the VNA and Hospice of the Southwest region with the VNA of Vermont and New Hampshire. You can see how they can be confusing, right? So I just want to make it very, very clear that our agency has not reduced our service area and has not reduced resources, including town funding, to ensure our patients receive the very best care, no matter the circumstances. Unfortunately, financial challenges are not going away. Our intends to cut our reimbursement over the next few years by almost 8%. And even though the state has eliminated our Medicaid provider tax due to years of underfunding, we will still lose money on every Medicaid program. Our budget for fiscal year 2024 is projecting a $1.8 million operating deficit. Because we're almost entirely dependent on Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, 92% of our revenue is Medicare and Medicaid. Town funding is critical to our organization. In 2022, the VNA provided over 127,000 visits to 3,043 patients throughout Rutland and Bennington counties. In Dorset alone, we provided care to 50 residents, doing 1,378 visits. By providing these services in the home, we saved the residents money. This is a really interesting statistic. The average cost of one overnight stay in the hospital is now $14,900. The average daily cost of a home health provider and the daily nursing home cost is $261. However, Medicare's decision to continue to cut our reimbursement is counter. Financial challenges are just one of the issues facing home health and the VNA HSR. I'm sure many of you have seen stories in the media regarding violence in hospitals and towards hospital workers. Home health staff. Home health has staff safety challenges as well. Every single day. These places include potential drug activity areas, hotels, homeless camps, and even unsuspecting homes. And under the current Vermont designation rules, we are required to go wherever a patient calls home. We cannot say no. We must continue to invest in safety measures and precautions for our staff to ensure they are able to escape harm if need be. Town funds help us do this. I can tell you this has become a priority for 2024, and we're investing a lot of effort into making sure that our clinicians, anybody providing care in the home, feels empowered to do whatever they need to do to be safe. It's an element of home health that is not often discussed, but it needs to be, because it's our reality. Not only are our staff at risk for their safety, we're also seeing medically sicker patients. We are seeing patients with significant mental health and substance use issues, 51% of our patients have a diagnosis or substance abuse issue. These patients tend to be less compliant with their plan of care, which makes the length of our visits longer and potentially require more visits, which in turn increases our costs. For Medicare, our largest payer, we are paid episodically, which means regardless of whether we do 5 visits or 15 visits in a 30-day period, we are paid the same amount. Hospitals are relying on home health for their patients more than they have ever. Many Vermonters are finding themselves at capacity, and in order to free up beds, they count on the skill and experience of home health clinicians to ensure continuity of care for the critical needs of the patients that they are discharging. Where hospitals have beds for patients, there is no limit to the number of patients a home health agency can care for. And with your support, we can continue to care for them all.
Does anybody have any? Yes. Yeah? Why don't you come up here? We'll share this mic.
I'm not a town resident, though.
That's okay. We already had it.
So the camera.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Marks, and I'm a town of Manchester
Your
resident.
name again?
Elizabeth, I'm a town of Manchester resident, but I wanted clarification on something that you said. I believe you said that you do not turn down anybody, and having had my father hospitalized, and in fact nobody from VNA or Beata could come, he was released to my brother and I for 10 days. I want to make sure I heard you correctly, because I adore your organization. I want to be very clear, super supportive, but I do believe there's a shortage, and I just wanted to make sure I understood what you said.
Sure, thank you. No, so we are not allowed to turn down patients. So I don't know what happened in your specific case, but there are times specific in terms of the plans of care. There's oftentimes some miscommunication between discharging providers and to work those things through. So I apologize, and I wish I had better.
Are there any further questions? Rosalie Fox.
I don't have a question, can I make comments?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'm glad I have somebody here from the VNA because I'm post-op and I'm a little bit lightheaded, so if I pass out or do something worse. All right, I value what the VNA does, absolutely, and the presentation you made is incredibly compelling. But what I want to address is the question of our enfranchisement. An issue like this, I truly wish had been on the Australian ballot. Because if it had been, I would have voted no. Not because I don't like VNA, and not because I haven't used VNA, because I have years ago. But I'm looking at the issue of equity. And I know through somebody mentioning to me and then verifying by looking at the Manchester warrant that Manchester only is asked to donate $10,000 to the VNA. $10,000. And whereas VNA has served 50 individuals in Dorset for $30,000, there were 194 individuals, 4 times as many, served in Manchester with a request that the town of Manchester contribute $10,000. Not the $40,000 from last year or the $30,000 from this year. Manchester also had 10,396 visits to the home from the VNA, which is impressive, compared to 1,378 visits. And I don't do my math very well, but that's maybe 5-6 times as many visits in Manchester to Manchester residents than to Dorset residents. Now, all I'm trying to say is that it's wonderful to support like the VNA, but I don't understand how year after year, and certainly started when one of our esteemed members of our town here in support of the VNA, why we're sitting here when our neighbor next door is contributing 1/3 less. than we are being asked this year to donate when they use the service 4, 5, 6 times more. So I ask you to think about that. I don't, having a voice vote as we do tonight puts each of us in a very awkward situation because we know each other and we care about each other. So it's not surprising that with any of the votes we ever do, there are very few people who raise their hands and say no. It would be lovely if we could all have a private ballot tonight where we could write down yea or nay, whether it's this issue or any other big dollar issue that we like. It's been argued that this is not going to really cut into our budget a lot. You know, it's a small amount given what we spend in our town, but it is an issue of whether we're enfranchised. Our votes mean anything at all. And I find that at town meeting, especially with the larger budget items where we sit here tonight and we're asked to vote yea and nay for, most of us don't have a choice. We keep silent. So I just want to raise that issue. Perhaps next year, some of these items, Australian ballot, that's my hope. And if any of you feel the same, please let me know.
Are there any further questions for Ms. Burdette? There being none, you can count back. Just to let Rosalie know, a little point of order. Since it is on the floor, there would be a vote of which I thought it was too close to call. Then there would be a raise of hands. We'd do it like that, and the BCA would have to count them. And then if that was too 7 voters that said that they won. Unless there are 7 voters who want to go to that.
Kevin, couldn't someone also make a motion for a different amount?
Someone could make, this is one of the advantages to a full vote. You could make a motion to amend that happens because we're on the floor. So, Rosalie Fox.
I'd like to make a motion $10,000 to be equal to what Manchester gives.
So Rosalie Fox has said she would a motion to amend the appropriation to $10,000 instead of $30,000. And is there a Sandra Weiss is seconding that motion to amend the article. Is there discussion on the amendment? No. We're discussing the amendment. A little bit of a blank.
Hi, Jamie Dixon.
And you're from Dorset.
Yes, Squirrel. Hi. So while I certainly understand, I think the better question here is not what Manchester pays per resident, but what the services value is to Dorset, right? So the question here needs not be, are they paying their fair share, but are we paying what we can afford and what the services from VNA are really worthwhile? Except that I probably would have moved to move it back to 40,000 at the very least to be in line with what we had spent previously. Thank you.
Jim Salzgiver is speaking.
Just to give a little additional color, this the same issue that Rosalie noticed.
Hold the mic where we can hear it.
Okay. And, decided to have a discussion with VNA management this past year. It was a good, very healthy discussion. The reason that it went from, the number had been 40,000 for a lot of years, without a whole lot of question. And we had a discussion, and what became kind of clear from that discussion was that, this VNA, every dollar for VNA is important, and what they do is extremely important. At the same time, the town allocations to I think what became kind of clear was that they, and you know, feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, but they hadn't really focused on the total amount coming from town requests and the fairness of the allocation. So we actually looked at not just Manchester, but also all the other towns in the service area and found that what towns were giving didn't really, didn't make a lot of sense. So we had that discussion, with VNA, and they were very happy to say, okay, we do have to look at that and consider that going forward. From our perspective, we didn't take a position on whether the right thing was for our number to necessarily to come up, which, either of them could be a perfectly valid approach to take. I just wanted to tell you that, the select board noticed that as an issue, we had a discussion with, positive about discussing that. It was a bit late to make major changes for this year's numbers for different towns, but they offered that they would be looking at that in the coming year.
Thank you. I would like to reiterate that message. The meeting really resulted in VNA taking a look inward and saying, how did we determine these appropriation requests in the past? There's been some new leadership that oversees development, and Sarah King, our CEO, although she's been with the organization for 23 years, has been CEO for 3 years now. So this is an opportunity for us to take a look and say how we, the calculation we use, or how we can pass the straight face test in terms of the dollars we ask for each location. So this conversation helped prompt that, and we're actively looking into that now in preparation for.
Rosalie?
Lest anybody think I'm against DNA, I'm not. But I also want to point out that a number of years ago, when the little greenhouse on Route 30 was donated to the VNA, the town voted to not charge them, real estate tax, because they are a nonprofit. And so I don't know the value of the home, the building right now. I know that there are 2 businesses in it that provide revenue to the VNA, assuming that they do provide revenue. But assuming that it might be a $600,000 home, that's also a contribution that Dorset has made to the VNA by foregoing the real estate tax on that. And I don't know the calculation, but that could be, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 of income that we forego as residents in support of the VNA. So our support for the VNA that's been proposed.
Just to let you know, on exemptions from taxes, there's 2 categories, and one is for if you don't qualify as benefiting everybody, you have to have a, which is 10 years the first year, and then 5 years every subsequent year. Okay, so that's one way to go. The Wilson House of East Dorset does that every 5 years. Another organization, and I know it's Dorset Historical Society, the library, and the house, they had made an application to the state to say that they benefited a big group and got exempt. And the difference is on the ones that go by petition, the education tax is still collected, but on those, it's not. And I believe that the former Brooks House is in the first category. So it's because of state statute, an application is made. And they don't, the town does not have to collect education tax on that. Okay, so I hope that at least clarifies what the status of an exempt is. Okay? Is Is there further discussion on this article? Oh, Sandy Pinto.
I think a little history here is that years ago, we would probably ask for $10,000 like Manchester, and over time, different residents stood up and asked for an increase. And then they asked for an increase and asked for an increase. This time, probably unaware of BNA doing any kind of petition, I think it was only because I've been here for so long, I believe that's the history of the BNA getting to $40,000. Not that Manchester, I'm sure Manchester probably has not had somebody stand up in favor of increasing it like we used to have here.
Terry Tyler.
Oh, wait.
Megan Turner.
The select board has been looking at is, along with the fact that every year education is driving our taxes up enormously, and we have a number in Burlington right now that if any Montpelier right now, that if they're passed could bump our taxes up 20 to 30%, is that our approach has taken on quite a large chunk of our budget. And the select board has no way to change the amount that organizations ask for. So in other words, anyone comes up with a petition and they get enough signatures, we can't say, yeah, I think that's a little bit high or a little bit low. We just put it in and it gets voted on. And so what we've been noticing is in an effort to try to keep the taxes from rising even higher, we've been trying to just different organizations and how we're spending our money. And that's kind of, we are not against the BNA. We're very happy for their services, but we just want to make sure that organizations are being very mindful and respectful to the residents, and that we're not just, it's pie in the sky. The money's coming from somewhere, and it's coming from all of our pockets. So we just have to be thoughtful.
Okay, so unless there's further discussion, we have two things to do. First, we have to vote on the amendment. Change the wording to, shall the voters appropriate the sum of $10,000 for the VNA and Hospice of the Southwestern Region, Nursing Association, for support of its services provided to Dorset residents. In favor of the amendment, changing it from $30,000 to $10,000, indicate your approval by saying aye. Aye. And your disapproval by saying nay. Nay. Okay, the amendment is defeated. So now we are back to the primary question. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $30,000 for the VNA and Hospice of the Southwest Region, formerly known as Dorset Nursing Association, for supporting its services provided to Dorset residents? All those in favor of Article 7 as originally submitted by saying aye. Aye. And your disapproval by saying nay. Nay. The ayes have it. Article 7 is passed. Okay. Now, Article 8. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $20,000 to the sustain the Playhouse Preservation and Maintenance Fund for the ongoing Playhouse? Is there a motion in favor? Okay, Julie Citron, and is there a second? Don? And who is to speak to this motion? Mr. Lang?
Thank you.
Are you?
I am a resident of Dorset, and I'm also a board member of the Dorset Players. In 1928, two old barns were moved to Dorset by Charlie Wade to create the Dorset Playhouse. That building, as we know it today, was expanded in 1999 and was reopened in 2001. For those of you who have attended a production, what you see in the front of the house is only a small part of the building. There are robust facilities behind the scene that support the production of live theater, including a scene workshop to build sets, and costume storage areas, practice rooms, offices, all backed up by a facilities plant that cools and heats 28,000 square feet. We are proud stewards of the building, and we pride ourselves on maintaining it to the highest standards, while also proactively looking forward to ongoing maintenance needs. We are an organization with one, and the bulk of our budget is derived from membership, advertising, and donations. Outside of our one staff person, all of the rest is done by dedicated volunteers. Performing our 96th season. And as an example, last weekend we performed our 19th One Act Festival. 19 actors performed, supported by another dozen people behind the scenes, all volunteers. Producing live theater is our primary mission, but maintaining a physical space to make this happen is. This is why I'm here tonight to ask for the support from Dorset residents to vote yes for our request for $20,000 for the ongoing capital improvements to the Dorset Playhouse. As a board representative of the Buildings Committee, our focus in 2024 is to replace and upgrade our boiler and related heating system. This will be on top of work that we have already completed with Efficiency Vermont to insulate and weatherize the building in preparation for this work. Funds from the town of Dorset last year, as approved by voters, have helped us install new carpeting in the theater, as well as the installation of new aisle lighting, which we hope to complete within the next month, as well as partial repairs this year to our heating system. Why support the Dorset players in this request for funds for capital improvements? In an age of increasing polarization and division, community theaters bringing people together across lines of race, class, and ideology. It creates opportunities for meaningful social interaction, dialogue on important social issues. By supporting, invest in the social fabric of our communities, building bridges of connection and solidarity that transcend differences and unite us in our common humanity. In conclusion, investing in community theater capital funding is not just a matter of supporting the arts. It is an investment in the heart and soul of our community. By nurturing a vibrant theater scene, we enrich our cultural landscape, empower our citizens, stimulate economic growth, and foster social cohesion. I urge you to join me in advocating for capital funding for the Dorset Players, ensuring that this invaluable institution continues to thrive and inspire generations to come. Together, let us build a future where the arts flourish, communities thrive, and the human spirit soars. Thank you.
Is there discussion on the article? Just a moment. I was so impressed with Ms. Fredette, she didn't have to do this. Okay. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $20,000 to the Dorset Players, Inc. to help sustain the Playhouse Preservation and Maintenance Fund for the ongoing repairs to the Dorset Playhouse? All those in favor of Article 8 indicate your approval by saying aye. Aye. And your disapproval by saying nay. The ayes have it. Article 8 is passed.
Thank you.
Okay. And now I can say that I've been in about 37 of those productions. So I know my way around a little bit, and I tend to call parents by their children's names because I've directed them. Henry Chandler is snickering, but in 1980. And the guy laughing there, he was Jacob Marley in 2019. Okay. Article 9. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $20,000 to the Dorset Village Library for the support of its services provided to Dorset residents? Okay, Justine. And Mr. Fox seconded. Okay. Is there discussion? Okay. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $20,000 to the Dorset Village Library for support of its services to Dorset residents. There being no discussion, all those in favor of Article 9 indicate your approval by saying aye. Aye. Or disapproval by saying nay. Article 9 is passed. Article 10. I forgot to ask whether there was somebody here for the library, right? I'm sorry.
You did.
Did I? What? I did forget.
You did forget to ask.
I did. You're right. Yeah. Oops.
Senility.
Shall the voters, Article 10, shall the voters appropriate the sum of, what a number, $18,970 to the Dorset Marble Preservation Association for the purposes of restoring Dorset's marble sidewalks. Is there Article 10? Roger Squire, second. And Mr. Squire, are you prepared to explain this weirdo number? Why couldn't you have just said 19,000? You're off by $30.
I see all those smiling faces out there. Hear me? Is there anyone here who doesn't know what the Dorset Marble Preservation is? That's so good. I didn't want to describe it. Okay. I'm putting this in my mouth. You will see my compelling narrative and the justification of our petition for $18,970. That amount is to help us buy $26,970 worth of marble. What do we plan to do with $26,970 worth of marble? For the last couple of years, having done a great deal of sidewalk work on this side of the mountain, we have been working on the East Dorset sidewalks, which were in worse shape, if you can believe it, than the sidewalks over here. Anyway, we think that $26,970 worth of new marble will get us most of the way to completing the sidewalk work on the north side of Mad Tom Road. Sorely needed, so all those pedestrians in East Dorset can safely walk all the way from their homes to the railroad tracks, where I will lie down in front of the next train. No one, if Rosie Fox votes against this. Oh, good, she's not there. Are there any questions?
We don't want to temper people's willingness to exercise their right to comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There is in the back. Yes. Sue Washburn. This to you. Sue Washburn.
You get in the right place, won't you? I'm Sue Washburn of Dorset. My question about the marble sidewalks is, are they all replaced? Is some of this, modern replacement? Because I'm in favor of the historical, but I don't know that it makes for history if it's done in 2024 until, another 100 years or so. That's my question.
So the question, Roger, just to hear, just in case there's a follow-up. Is all replacing a path that was, or is it a new sidewalk path?
Replacing the path that was. We have to use, regrettably, of old marble. Very difficult to get old marble. All the sidewalks around town are 100 years old or more, and they all have wear and tear, so on and so forth. We can't get any more of that stuff. So we've been using new marble, but we're putting it down on old, to replace unusable marble on the old sidewalks. Interestingly, some of the sidewalks have been crushed by machines, excavators, heavy-duty lawnmowers. So, just a side note, if you're getting work done, a big piece of equipment has to go to your house, make sure that guy stays off the sidewalk. Hugely.
Maybe it's that we're reusing the marble that is usable and just...
Oh, yes. I don't mean to imply that we're just ripping out usable marble and replacing it with new marble. We're not. Only stuff that is unusable and unsafe is where we put new marble in.
But you're not adding...
No.
Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions.
Perhaps you weren't aware Roger sings bass in church. If there's no further discussion, Article 10, shall the voters appropriate the sum of $18,970 to the Dorset Marble Preservation Association for the purpose of restoring Dorset. Of Article 10, indicate your approval by saying aye. Aye. Your disapproval by saying nay. The ayes. Article 11, shall the voters appropriate the sum of $13,000 to the North Shire Day School to provide early childhood education services to the residents of the town? Is there a motion in favor of Article 11? Chip Watson, and a second. Cindy Marion. Is there someone here from North Shire Day School? Yes, there is. Please say your name and...
Hi, I am Jen Moody. I'm a Dorset resident and development director at North Shire Day School. In the lobby at photograph of the Sarah Larson Day School, which is our former building on Highland Avenue in Manchester, and a caption that
Tom Smith is my arm on this. He says you're not close enough.
Closer. Thank you. And a caption that reads, North Shire Day School is where it all begins. And for our children, NDS really is the place. Offering a child the best possible start in life, we mean that families are accessing our professional educators during the critical first 5 years of their child's life at our 5-star program. Children who participate in a high-quality early childhood program are more ready to begin their educational career, not only academically, but socially and morally. For enjoying school, gaining self-confidence, and a lot of learning. Our curriculum director, along with our early childhood educators, refers children to early intervention and specialized services early on, proactively reducing the burden on special education budgets and intentionally building skills during the window when children are developmentally ready to receive those supports. Knowing that early childhood years are foundational to later school success, your appropriation ensures that public education Our community can take advantage of this critical period of brain development by supporting our exceptional early childhood program that builds a By the time children leave NDS, they are less likely to need special education services when they begin kindergarten. Lessening the need for special education services has a direct result of reducing our community's education tax burden. Per child to attend Northshire Day School is $24,711 per year. Our tuition received from families, state subsidies, and Act 166 prepay funding covers $14,672 of that. The remaining $10,039 is subsidized through donations, fundraising, grants, and town funding like this. NDS has been in operation for 55 years and counting. Currently, we serve 8 on our waiting list. We have 35 dedicated staff, 15 holding 11 with master's degrees, and we will be up to 12 certified licensed teachers by May. Our committed educators are paid less than public school teachers and receive no benefits. The program operates from 7:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday, 12 months out of the year. I lost my spot. Every child accesses an annual. Town appropriations help us fulfill our commitment to deliver exceptional early childhood education to as many children and families as possible, regardless of their ability to pay. For the benefit of our greater community, I encourage you to vote yes for NDS. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? Okay, I'll repeat the article. Shall the voters appropriate the sum, excuse me. I didn't see something.
I have some questions.
Oh, yes, please come up. I'm sorry. Thanks for keeping me honest on that. I just.
Mike asked an issue. I don't know if you want to. Sure.
And Tom Smith will tell you to keep it close.
Can you tell me how many Dorset students are at Northshire?
We can't hear you.
No. How many students are at Dorset, Northshire?
We have 13 Dorset students.
Okay. Are the voters in Dorset aware that there is a Dorset-based childcare facility that has 17 Dorset students? Just so that everybody knows.
Good to the motion for this organization, not for other organizations. Okay.
Does Northshire Day School accept every Dorset student that applies?
Due to having a waiting list, we do accept children in the order that we have openings for them.
I would like to just note that not every Dorset child can go to Northshire Day School, right? Because of the waiting list. It's not necessarily every student can. And so I just want to point out that all of the other things that we are voting for tonight, everyone in Dorset can access them if they want to, right? Okay. Can you tell me over the last 7 years, how much have you increased your tuition rates in the last few years since you started asking for appropriations from the town?
We have been working towards a balanced budget for a very long time, and we have dramatically increased our tuition rates, which is one of the ways we are able to maintain our educators to staff our program. Thank you for asking the question.
Do you know how much, what percentage you've increased it in the last couple of years?
Increase. We don't feel that we should be asking towns for funds without including our families in that process.
Okay. I did some math just from your growth reports for the last couple of years, and it looks like the per child tuition that you guys are receiving, right? Your portion that you're getting, not the additional that's covered. was increased 7.3%, which obviously nobody wants. I should have prefaced, but to start, I know childhood education is really important. I'm totally for it. What I don't agree with is the town as a whole funding some children who are lucky enough to go to the school that has excellent programs. About a Spanish language program, there's this family tree program, all of these new programs. Again, great. Childcare is an need, but are we funding an amazing program? And that program could also look at whether they need the town funding or could try to balance the budget internally and maybe not have so many nice programs. That's what I'm trying to get at.
I don't think that's a question she can really.
You have and kitchen staff, is that correct? And are they all paid salaries?
We do have an executive director. I think you're referring to the different positions in our administration. So I'm a development director, we also have a curriculum director, an administrative director, and yes,
And they're all paid salaries like teachers?
Hourly, whereas our administrative team are on salaries as exempt employees.
And I'm sorry, I think this may be my last point. The Manchester amount that was asked has gone down this year, and the Dorset amount has stayed the same. Could you just explain the thought process?
Of course. We had a decline in enrollment in Manchester. While we hope to do this as equitably as possible.
Ms. Clark?
There are many Dorset students who need care. There are many Dorset children on wait lists for places. I've thought about this a lot of different ways. I'm fully supportive of childcare, just like everyone's fully supportive of the VNA. I just don't believe that the town funding an organization that only gives care to a small portion of the student population of that age group is an equitable.
Just so I'm clear, are you recommending the approval of this article? Disapprove. Okay, thank you very much. It's Allison Clark. I don't think you introduced yourself that way, did you?
Sorry.
Okay. All right. And that's what town meeting's about. We get to go back and forth. Okay. Article 11. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $13,000 for the to the North Shire Day School to provide early childhood education? Indicate your approval of Article 11 by saying aye. Aye. Your disapproval by saying nay. Nay. The ayes have it. Article 11 is passed. Article 12. Shall the voters appropriate cemetery to help in the build of a new equipment building on the grounds of the cemetery? Is there a motion in favor of Article 12? Chip Watson and Don Hayward. Okay. Seconded. Okay, is there someone here to speak on behalf of this article and plot our future? Try early away. Tom Cooper.
Thank you. To speak on this, but as has happened many times in life, he has stood me up and left me out to dry on this one. But so I'm not prepared with any particular remarks. The proposal is quite straightforward. There was on the grounds of the Maple Hill Cemetery a rather small and dilapidated building that was both an eyesore, small to accommodate the needs of the cemetery. The trustees, a group of 5, I think, we are an all-volunteer organization, decided to take it down this summer, and we are asking funds to replace it with a building that would be constructed in part with property. We hope to build something that is in keeping with a cemetery of historic proportions. We buried our first person in 1772, so 4 years before the Declaration of Independence. We are in the long-term business, no longer, and so we hope to build an attractive building of lasting qualities in keeping with the status of the cemetery and its sort of character. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Is there discussion on this article? Okay, so Article 12, shall the voters appropriate the sum of $10,000 to the Maple Hill Cemetery to help in the build of a new equipment building grounds of the cemetery? All those in favor of Article 12 indicate your approval by saying aye. Aye. Your disapproval by saying nay. Ayes have it. Article 12 is passed. Okay, Article 13. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $7,500 to the Dorset Historical Society to support its activities and continued efforts to serve as a cultural resource to our community? Is there a motion in favor of this article? Sue Washburn, and a second, Lee Romano, and I believe the president of the board. This is where I do miss Terry. I used to wax on too.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Wait, so.
Very close. Mr.
Okay.
Stenton.
So I am of the Dorset Historical Society. I'm very pleased to represent them this evening and to be asking for an appropriation of $7,500.
Russian. You have to almost kiss it.
There's information in the booklet here about us, also on our website, about our mission and more of our activities. But to summarize, during the time of the evening, our society serves as a public museum to exhibit and preserve historical materials from the town of Dorset. It promotes the education of our community through monthly lectures and a quarterly newsletter about the history of Dorset. The Dorset Historical Society also provides. Our society serves these roles for the Dorset community, as well as regional, national, and international visitors. Thank you.
I was asked to verify in the minutes how to spell your first name, and I said R-A-C-H-E. Russ Simmons. No, she's not from these parts, but she and her husband have a house in the Upper Hollow. 14 years. For 14 years. He's a good golf partner. And she's a doctor. Go figure. Okay. Thank you. Are there any discussion? Is there discussion on this? Article? Okay, no? Okay. You can sit down. Thanks. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $7,500 to the Dorset Historical Society to support its activities and continued efforts to serve as a cultural resource to our community? Indicate your approval by saying aye. Aye. Your disapproval by saying nay. The ayes have it. Article 13 is passed. As an aside, Bo Turn asked earlier whether he'd have an opportunity to speak to Mike Rice. Nice returns. Like MacArthur, he has returned. He's a fact. And if you want other business to make it a public comment, and he can comment publicly, otherwise you can just pull on his coat. Okay. Okay. Article 14. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $5,000 to the Southwestern Vermont Council on Aging for support and to provide services to the residents of the town? Is there a motion in favor of Article 14? Martha Merman and Mike Altidal is a second. And we have someone here to speak in favor of the article.
Stand back here.
Hi, I'm Michelle Pagan. Can you hear me?
No, you have to pretty well kiss it.
Roger was right.
Give him a mouth.
Speak louder.
My name is Michelle Pagan. I live in East Dorset. And I serve as a member of the board of the Southwestern Vermont Council on Aging. This council is one of 5. We have a new thing, a consortium now of 5 councils on aging all over the state, covering the 4 corners, thank you, 4 corners of the state, as well as the Central Vermont Council on Aging. So the money that you have been voting, and I'm here to say thank you on behalf of the staff and all of the volunteers. We thank you for all of the years that the people of Bennington County and Rutland County have been supporting the Council on Aging. December, when I was collecting the 100 signatures that I needed to get the council on the ballot this year, is nobody knew what I was talking about. When I told them I was with the Council on Aging, blank. The board was really happy to hear this, you might imagine. But when I said to people to get their signatures, we do Meals on Wheels, everybody signed. No more questions asked. Perhaps you all have also heard of Meals on Wheels. It is a nationwide program, and it's just one of the things that the Council on Aging does. Our mission is to help older Americans, right? We're all going to be old someday. I'm not old yet, you're not old yet, but we're all going to be old someday. Our mission is to help older help them to stay in their homes, which is what everybody wants. The services that they need brought to them or brought to their attention so that they can choose how it is they want to age. I have both parents now, 94 and 95 years old, and I can tell you it's a constant thing, right? It's 24 hours a day care at this point. We're very fortunate that my parents have 3 children, myself included, nearby. So we haven't had to count on the Central Vermont Council on Aging. Maybe some of you, though, will be in that situation where your children have grown up and moved away. You're going to need the Council on Aging, perhaps, to help you access all of the different medical services, money management services. I have personally been told by some of our clients that that's the best thing we do. We help people plan how to spend maybe now their limited funds. Maybe they never had to do this before. They never had to pay such close attention to their funds, but now they do. That's about it. If you want to know, I have a lot of facts and figures I could read you, but I don't really think you want to hear them. We're all described on page 28 of the booklet here tonight. 35 that covers all of Bennington and Rutland counties. We have 300 volunteers alone just delivering all the Meals on Wheels. Over 200,000 Meals on Wheels were delivered just this last year. And again, thank you very much for your prior support.
Is there any discussion? Wait, that's mine. Golly. Town reports on wheels. Okay. Article 14, if there's no further discussion. Oh, I'm sorry, Sandy Benson.
Okay, in the past, the Council on Aging has asked for $1,600, and it's been that way for a few years. And I get it, food costs are going up. But in the last of Dorset, you served 276 meals to 6 homes. And you went from $1,600 to $5,000. I get food costs, but I'm just curious as to why it went up 300% in 1 year, and why you didn't 2,500 or 2,000, but to me, 1,600 to 5,000 is a huge jump. And if all of our appropriations jump 100%, we'd be a really big total. So I'm just curious as to why we're serving 276 meals to Dorset older residents came together for a luncheon where 7 meals were served. 18 and a half hours of nutritional support for 9 residents. So a total of maybe 15 residents, all for $5,000.
Yeah, good question. Part of this, yes, part of this is playing catch up due to the cost of groceries, obviously, for Meals on Wheels. We all know groceries cost a whole lot more today than they did 10 years ago. 10 years ago was when the $1,600 was initially appropriated. So the $5,000 is looking towards the future. It is within the next 6 years. By the year, the Vermont Department of Health is projecting a 112% increase in the number of senior citizens. 1 out of 3, this is hard to believe, but the projection is that by the year 2030, 1 out of 3 Vermonters will be. And so, you're right, it does seem like a big jump. I just said it's to make up for costs of things like groceries, but it's also projected into the future. The huge growth that is anticipated in the numbers of senior citizens that we will have in the state.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you, Sandy, for your comments. Is there any further discussion on this article? Okay. $5,000 to the Southwestern Vermont Council on Aging for support and to provide services to the residents of the town. All those in favor of Article 14 indicate your approval by saying aye. Aye. Your disapproval by saying nay. Nay. The ayes have it. Article 14 is passed.
Thank you.
Article 15. Shall the voters allow budgeted appropriation nonprofit and community organizations? This sentence doesn't quite give their, let me just try again.
Give it verbally versus in writing.
Budget appropriation nonprofit and community organizations give their annual report verbally to voters. Right now, we require ask for an appropriation, you have some report in this report in writing. So this is a question of just give their report verbally without being in this book.
No, this is for all the
Isn't it?
smaller
Smaller ones?
the organizations.
I am confused.
This is some space for all the organizations that are getting to make a verbal report on what they did last year and answer questions if they so choose.
Okay, so it's not in the motion about $2,000, but it seems like smaller budgeted ones. Is there a motion in favor of Article 15? You have to put the motion on the floor first. Tom Smith, no, you're not doing that. Is there somebody who wishes Article 15? Okay, that's it. And David McMahon. And now Tom Smith. Tom, didn't you have a question?
Are we open for discussion yet?
Yes, we are now.
I want to make sure that you.
The discussion here indicated that for groups under $2,000, you were going to waive the requirement for the written report. Was my correct understanding that's what the select board has now done? Put one in here for $30,000 in the budgeted appropriation. If you're going to have $30,000, I think you ought to have a report.
Do you wish to say something?
Entrances.
Me. Wait.
So,
What do we do?
did it?
Just a sec. Is this supposed to be out like this?
Sounds like it's
The word handy is never an adjective used to describe me. Describes handy.
Egan.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, so, Tom, what we've done is any not-for-profit or group that's asking for money that's above $2,000 has to have a report, has to have a petition, and has to have someone here to speak about it. We're talking about the organizations that are asking for small amounts, $500. A lot of the ones that we decided didn't need to. So not the large numbers.
Oh, okay, Megan.
Oh, Dorset Economic Development, I'm sorry.
Let Tom explain his own question, okay? Somebody did not petition and they're in the...
We stated that we weren't going to have petitions for appropriation for Dorset Economic Development, and he wants to know why they're not here to talk about it.
So it's a budget. That's a budgeted appropriation. The things that are talked about here tonight are voter-approved appropriations, which is on the bottom of page 69.
So it's part of what you're voting on tomorrow. Ellen?
Ellen Law, sorry. This is just a suggestion. I think if we really should vote on it. I mean, it's impossible to tell from the way that's worded what's intended unless somebody wants to amend it. Fine. But I don't think we should.
Yes.
This is meant for the voters to allow the small nonprofits to speak right now. That's what we should do.
I think that's what... Okay, let me just read it again. Shall the voters allow budgeted appropriation to report verbally? So, what Rod is saying is, if they were in the budget, one of them wants to speak about their thing verbally, that's all. So you can vote no and say, no, we don't want them to talk. That's what the intent of this is. I admit it could have been worded better.
I don't think we can vote on intent. If somebody looks at this next year and wants to know what we voted on, they won't know by looking at this motion. If you would amend the motion, that'd be beautiful.
I can't amend anything.
Let me see if I can. Makes sense. Shall the voters allow nonprofit and community organizations that their appropriations are included in our budget presentation at town meeting? Does that Does that make sense?
So Megan has made a motion to amend. Is there a second to the motion to amend?
Second.
In the back. Oh, golly, you were just up earlier.
I was. Jamie gets it.
Jamie Cato seconded it. So, if you can repeat the motion. No, since it's not.
Shall the voters allow nonprofit and community organizations whose appropriations are included in our budget to give an annual report verbally at town meeting now?
Okay, so that's the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? There being none, she just... All those in favor of the amended language, please indicate your approval by saying aye. Aye. All against, say nay. The amendment is passed. That means now we're voting as a primary question, the very same language. I'm not going to ask her to get up again. All those in favor of that amended language, please indicate your approval by saying aye. The ayes have it. The motion is passed, and since these things take place the following year, next year, it takes effect. Article 16 is to transact.
I just want some clarification on this.
What? I thought we had discuss. I thought I said discussion, but.
Is there anybody that's on these appropriations who would like to talk?
Oh, okay. Because the ship is sailed.
Always my luck. I'm Ruth Stewart, and I want to know where in the budget you have included those appropriations that are smaller than
Right on page 68.
So, page 68, budgeted appropriations, and my understanding is organizations, which include Habitat, GNAT, the Collaborative, PAVE, Neighbor to Neighbor, etc. The amounts that they're requesting are small enough that they were not included as appropriations to be discussed for. Is that my understanding?
They didn't have to petition, they were already in the budget.
So you decided to include all of those automatically in the budget, okay. And I guess Tom's question, and it's also conservation, no, wait a minute. The Dorset Economic Development, the $30,000.
It's a town budget, they put it in their budget.
So the article is whether if you are one of these budgeted organizations, and we didn't have a separate article to give you an opportunity to speak. Motion, that's what we voted on. So next year, they'll be able to just get up and talk.
They could now in open business.
Just going to answer Ruth's question real quick. The $30,000 for Dorset Economic Development is part of a partnership that we have with the Chamber of Commerce around the dorsetvt.com website. And
So just in case I'm wrong, is there someone from one of those organizations that were in the budget, such as Neighbor to Neighbor, or anybody who wishes to speak? Ma'am, the lady up here, she...
This one,
yeah.
I first of all have a question. If this is in the budget for $750 for Neighbor to Neighbor, my understanding is that Neighbor to Neighbor requested a... So,
they thought they were going to increase it, but they didn't.
Just a second.
Just because we're not on double secret probation and this isn't on GNAT. The question was, Elizabeth had said, is the budget, in the budget, is a $750 grant, and then Sandy Pincinel had said, was it originally 1,000? But what we do know is that the budget that the select board did pass allows $750 for neighbor to neighbor.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. And since it's not in the budget, since it is in the budget, I don't have to ask for appropriations from the town like we have in the.
They're voting on the budget tomorrow, so you still can do that.
Thank you very much, Carol. Is that loud enough for you, Tom?
Ann?
Hi, I'm Marianne Morris, Executive Director of the Collaborative. Thanks for having me here and for voting and for supporting the Collaborative over the years. Our letter to you all is on page 42, so take a look at it, but I thought I'd just give you a quick review of what we do and what we do for Dorset specifically, and the money from Dorset specifically. So the Collaborative, and we work throughout Bennington County and really all of Southern Vermont because we manage some grants that help support other organizations too. Really do with the money from the towns here in the North Shire is use them for our youth programming. Specifically our RTU program, which has recently shifted its mission and its name to Resiliency Through Understanding. We've created a philosophy around connection with this program. And so the youth that are participating in that program from Long Trail, from Dorset, from BVA, Dorset School from BVA, are required to do 5 events during the winter time, 3 events during the summertime. In return, they get a season pass to either Stratton, Magic, Riley Rink, Viking Nordic, and in the summertime, there's opportunities for the State Parks Pass or Mountain Biking Pass. We're pairing incentive-based programs, opportunities for connection and learning and understanding. This year's winter theme was around mental health. We partnered with the Wilson House to do a recovery panel. A lot of families came out to that, where they talked about the intersection of mental health and substance use and how a different. We've done hikes up Bromley Mountain as part of one of our unplugged events for this year, because we recognize that there's this to be on our phones and our computers. Even me, I had to do a little work tonight. And we want to kind of break that chain a little bit. So this year's, we had 300 participants in our program from middle school to high school. And we also did some substance-free events, some direct work with the schools around vaping and education. Supporting our projects, and we really appreciate it. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
On page 68, the appropriation that's budgeted is $750 for the collaborative. So if you vote in favor of the budget tomorrow, you're voting in favor of $750 for the collaborative. Okay? Is there?
We all have had trying to get more discussion on these appropriations, which I think we've gotten this year, and I'm very happy about that, and I'm sure everyone is. I will apologize for the badly written last amendment and a little bit of confusion, but what we're trying to do is these organizations that we've supported who are asking for very small amounts because they've been there for so long and it's such a small amount, and really focus on the organizations that are asking for a much larger portion of money for our budget. So we apologize for the badly written article, and hopefully by next year we'll smooth things out a bit so that everyone understands what we're trying to do. But thank you for your patience.
But before you leave, get together with Sandy so we have the minutes, and we have the right language. Okay. Article 16 is more of a open-ended other business. This is where things, if they're not germane, don't fit under any other category. If you wish to speak, we'll And Cindy Marion? No, you have to come up here. It does go good for GM. No, that doesn't good.
Hi. I think, is your name Brittany? Who?
Oh, Allison.
Allison. Okay.
Microphone on your mouth.
Okay. I don't know, you know, COVID changed everything, but I don't know if you approached the local school boards or Connick Green, whatever board now one approaches, about setting up programs to satisfy that need for the children that are not being serviced by Sir Lawrence or Northshire or what have you.
Which is why I care about this. And I also want to apologize because I felt like I was a little rushed before and didn't feel like I got my full message across. I have spoken to some people, like in the minimal amounts of free time that I have, to discuss why this should or should not be a town of Dorset issue. It should be a state issue. It should be an individual business issue. The other school that's in Dorset that just happens to not be organized as a not-for-profit, so it can't ask Dorset for support, has one admin, pays property taxes to Dorset, doesn't spend money on a food program, has had to increase their tuition 23% over the last few years versus Northshire 7%. Somehow is still making it work. They serve over 2 times more pre-K kids from Dorset than Northshire does. They don't get the town funding, they don't get donations, they just get the same state-based amounts that everybody else gets. I hope to quit my job soon, I would love to, but right now I'm not, but I do want to be more involved. I've served on the Raptor Lane Committee a couple of years, all the babies arrived, and I just don't have time to, like even coming here tonight, I had to leave my husband at home with my 1-year-old and 4-year-old throwing a tantrum. It's not easy, but you'll see me more. I'll try not to be offensive, but I really, things really bother me when they're not equitable. They always have my whole life. So again, like I don't think this is a town issue. Supporting some kids from a town who happen to be able to be a part of this great school that happens to be a not-for-profit, I don't think is fair. I think we should support all the students in this town. If we think maybe there's 60 people in there, just decided to make a $200 per person donation to Northshire. I would love if you want to stop by and see me when this is over and give me your information so to the other school that's in Dorset that serves Dorset kids.
Ellen Maloney.
Hi, Ellen Maloney. We have a table where you could sign up for an energy audit if you wish. The Dorset Energy Committee works hard to help folks in the town of Dorset weatherize their homes, save on fuel, and ultimately maybe make a cleaner environment as well. We're really happy to have anyone sign up for take any literature, first of all, but also sign up for further information on energy audits. Lots of incentives available now, thanks to the IRA, which is the, let's see, Inflation Reduction Act, yes, and there really are. You should see the incentives available for cars and things, so we do have that over at the table. So thank you. Enjoy.
And I think there's muffins over there too. Could be wrong.
They found those.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay. Oh, Bo, are you just going to address Mike?
No, I'd like to do it.
Mike, come on up. If he's got a comment, you're going to have a reply.
Thank you very much. First, I would just like to thank you, Mike, for your service and for representing us. I know it's a lot of work and it doesn't pay very much, so thank you very much for that. But I'm a little bit concerned, and I want to raise this with you. You know, we have in the past couple of years seen significant inflation. We have increased interest rates, and for most Vermonters, I believe, we can all feel it one way or another. In the meantime, I'm concerned about how, particularly from my perspective, the interest of CERB in Montpellier. I have seen you signing and voting in favor of several bills that have increased our tax burden. The DMB, we have the carbon tax. There's also a payroll tax, but I think most concerning for me is that you have also voted to increase your compensation with benefits in a situation where many Vermonters are feeling a squeeze. So my question to you, Mike, is this. There are, even though there are no bills right now, but there are two things that are being discussed. One is a big spending bill in Vermont. And the other one is to increase taxes even further, be that a wealth tax or whatever it might be. I would like to know how you vote in terms of those two.
Thanks, Bo, for the questions. First, I'll just cover a few of the things you noted. The DMV fees we did raise last year. Typically, in the past, fees like that were on a regular schedule to be increased. So every 3 years, no matter the administration, the legislature, and the governor would work together to come up with the appropriate level by which to raise things like the amount you spend on your license renewal every couple of years. Unfortunately, for the past 8 years, that hadn't been happening. So we were in a situation where the transportation fund was underfunded fees. And so we were in the position last year where we put through a transportation fee bill and raised. Unfortunately, the amount that they had to increase was significantly higher than it would have been if we'd been doing it all along. But I understand your point. I understand that it's difficult. I would argue that, properly funding the transportation fund, making sure that our Department of Transportation can be out there repairing our roads, making bridges and our infrastructure is properly suited to be safely traveled year-round. Those things. So that's just the DMV fees. You mentioned a carbon tax. I imagine that you're probably talking about the Affordable Heat Act, which is not a carbon tax. Carbon tax was proposed several years ago, didn't pass. Affordable Heat Act, not a tax, but rather an incentive to try to help folks in Vermont replace their outdated heating systems, fossil fuel-based heating systems, with cleaner, more affordable heating systems, and make sure that everybody can make that transition, not just folks who can afford it without any kind of assistance. I did cast a vote last year. State legislators spend 4 days a year, 5 months, 4 days a week, 5 months a year in Montpelier. We do so for a salary of about $14,000. I knew that getting into it, and I, have a partner at home who works full-time, more than full-time. I work outside of the legislature so that I can make that service work. But I know that there are a lot of Vermonters who can't even think about performing that kind of service for their community and representing their communities in Montpelier. It's really important to me that if we're going to have a citizen legislature that's supposed to be made up of folks from all walks of life, all the communities across Vermont, going to the State House for half the year and bringing their community's voice to Montpelier, that it's actually accessible for most people who want to do that kind of service. I don't believe it is right the way I did on that issue. However, I will tell you, the governor vetoed it, it doesn't have the votes to override the veto in the Senate, and I won't be making any increased salary for this year or any of the next 2 years if I'm lucky enough to continue this service. The wealth tax that you mentioned, so there are two bills that have been introduced in the Ways and Means Committee. One is a bill that would apply a surplus to household income over $500,000 a year. And the other is colloquially referred to as a wealth tax, which is taxing holdings outside of income. The proposal in the bill is holdings over $10 million. They've received very little testimony so far, certainly not close to coming to the floor, so I honestly can't tell you how I would vote on the sort of final version of either of them. But I would just say that I do think, we've heard from Vermonters that we are in desperate need of childcare, that we're in desperate need of housing. We know that we have huge work to do in terms of climate resilience, and we saw what happened in our communities after in July and again in December, and who knows when the next one's coming. It's not 100 years from now, we know that. So there are a lot of costs we're going to incur, and we do need to talk about the revenue side of those costs. I understand the burden. I certainly am not a person who can afford, I think we need to be having conversations, at least, about if we have these needs in our communities, and we believe in having real communities of folks who live and work and raise their families and retire and thrive in Vermont, we're at least going to have to open up the conversations and say, well, what is possible? What does make the most sense?
Yes, just a quick one. I hear what you're saying, and yes, let's have that conversation, but you have constantly voted to increase taxes and to increase in taxes and in terms of wealth tax or the spending bill moving forward. But my concern is what this will do to the state.
The question has been asked and answered, and that I've been through this very recently, and so we don't know how the final bill is going to sugar out. So you can have that discussion privately once the bill is finalized, but I don't think it would be fair for him to say how he's going to vote. He's already said he doesn't know yet because he hasn't seen the version. If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to recess this meeting until 7 a.m. tomorrow, when voting will continue by Australian ballot. Parent Council says seconded. All those in favor of a motion to recess signify approval by saying aye. Aye. Ayes have it. We are out of here. Thank you very much for coming.